Story number 1. Whispers behind the canvas. I never believed in ghosts. Growing up in the vibrant streets of New Orleans, surrounded by the rich tapestry of life, music, and history, I found comfort in the tangible, the rhythm of jazz, the scent of magnolias, and the lively chatter of friends and family. So when my parents decided to host their annual Christmas party at our ancestral home in the Marigny neighborhood, I was both excited and skeptical about the old stories that whispered through the halls of our Victorian mansion. The house stood proudly on a narrow street, its ornate facade adorned with intricate woodwork and large bay windows that captured the glow of the holiday lights. Inside, the grand foyer welcomed guests with its sweeping staircase and the warm glow of a crackling fireplace. My parents had meticulously decorated every corner, from the sparkling Christmas tree in the living room to the elegantly set dining table that awaited our guests. That Christmas Eve, our home was filled with laughter and joy as friends and family gathered to celebrate the season. The aroma of roasted turkey and spiced cider mingled with the sweet notes of holiday melodies playing softly in the background. Children darted around, their faces illuminated by the twinkling lights, while adults engaged in spirited conversations, sharing stories and reminiscing about years past. As the evening progressed and the guests began to depart, the house settled into a serene quietude, broken only by the soft ticking of the antique clock in the hallway. My parents decided to retire early, leaving me and my younger sister, Emily, to enjoy the peacefulness of the night. We lingered in the living room, savoring the last moments of the evening, when a sudden, eerie stillness descended upon the house. It started with a faint sound, a soft thud coming from upstairs. We exchanged puzzled glances, the festive atmosphere now tinged with an unsettling tension. "Did you hear that?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Probably just the house settling," I replied, trying to mask my unease. But the noise persisted, growing louder and more deliberate. The sound of footsteps echoed through the empty halls, each step resonating with a haunting finality. My heart pounded in my chest as I glanced toward the staircase, the shadows playing tricks on my eyes. "Maybe someone forgot something upstairs," I suggested, though doubt gnawed at me. Summoning our courage, we decided to investigate. Armed with a flashlight, we ascended the grand staircase, the beam cutting through the darkness. The upstairs corridor was adorned with portraits of our ancestors, their stern gazes following our every move. The air grew colder, and the oppressive silence was broken only by the rhythmic thudding that seemed to guide us toward a specific door at the end of the hallway. As we approached, the door swung open on its own, revealing a hidden room bathed in moonlight streaming through a stained glass window. The room was small, lined with shelves holding dozens of old, dusty paintings. Each canvas depicted solemn figures, men, women, and children, captured in moments of joy and sorrow. Their eyes seemed to follow us, their expressions frozen in time, as if they were silently witnessing our intrusion. Emily stepped forward, her curiosity overcoming her fear. "Look at these," she whispered, pointing to a particularly striking portrait of a woman in a flowing black dress. Her eyes were hollow, filled with an unspoken sorrow that sent shivers down my spine. "Who are they?" Before I could respond, the room began to shift, the shadows deepened, and the air thickened with an invisible presence. The paintings seemed to come alive, the figures within them moving subtly, their expressions changing from serene to mournful. The woman in black stood up from her canvas, her eyes locking onto mine with a piercing intensity. "Why are you here?" Her voice echoed through the room, a haunting melody that resonated with pain and longing. I took a hesitant step forward, my voice trembling. "We didn't mean any harm. We were just curious." The woman's form shimmered, her presence growing more tangible. "This house holds the memories of those who lost their lives here on Christmas night," she intoned. "We remain, bound by our sorrow, unable to move on." Emily clutched my arm, her eyes wide with fear. "What happened here?" The woman sighed, a sound filled with centuries of anguish. 20 years ago, on this very night, a tragedy befell our family. An accident, a night of joy turned to despair. Our souls are tethered to this place, seeking solace that eludes us. Determined to help, I searched the room for answers. My gaze fell upon an old journal lying on a dusty table, its pages yellowed with age. Maybe this can help, I suggested, picking it up and flipping through the fragile pages. The journal belonged to Eleanor Whitaker, a name I recognized from our family tree. As I read her heartfelt entries, the story unfolded, a family celebrating Christmas, laughter filling the air, until a sudden fire erupted in the kitchen, engulfing the house in flames. The Whitaker family perished in the blaze, their lives extinguished in an instant, leaving behind only ashes and broken dreams. Eleanor's final entry was a desperate plea for peace, a wish to be remembered and allowed to rest. "We have to help her find peace," I said, closing the journal with determination. "We need to honor their memory." Turning back to Eleanor, I spoke with conviction. "We will remember you. We will honor your story and ensure that your memories live on." The atmosphere shifted, the oppressive weight lifting as the room filled with a sense of calm. Eleanor's form softened, her eyes reflecting gratitude and relief. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice now a soothing balm that resonated through the room. "You have given us peace." With those final words, the paintings returned to their stillness, the figures once again frozen in time. The hidden room felt lighter, the shadows receding as if they were no longer holding us back. Emily and I stood there, the weight of the night lifting from our shoulders, knowing that we had made a difference. As we descended the staircase, the first light of dawn began to break through the storm clouds, casting a golden glow over the farmhouse. The house, once a place of sorrow and tragedy, now stood as a beacon of remembrance and compassion. The lingering presence of the Whitaker family had been transformed into a legacy of love and the enduring power of honoring the past. In the weeks that followed, the farmhouse felt different, lighter, filled with a serene calm that allowed us to fully embrace the joy of the holiday season. We shared the story of our encounter with friends and family, ensuring that the Whitaker legacy would not be forgotten. The hidden room remained sealed, a sacred space of remembrance and peace. Years have passed since that transformative Christmas Eve, but the lessons remain etched in my heart. Every Christmas, as I gather with Laura and Emily, I reflect on the power of empathy and the importance of honoring those who came before us. The story of our encounter serves as a poignant reminder that even in our most joyous celebrations, the shadows of the past can linger, waiting to be acknowledged and remembered with love and understanding. And so, the whispers at midnight live on, a haunting yet beautiful tale that intertwines with the festive spirit, reminding us to cherish our loved ones and honor the memories of those who have passed, ensuring their presence remains a beacon of love and remembrance in our hearts forever. Story number 2. Whispers at midnight. I never believed in ghosts. Growing up in the heart of Toronto, surrounded by the relentless pulse of city life, I found comfort in the tangible, the steady hum of traffic, the vibrant lights of Yonge Street, and the predictable rhythm of everyday existence. But that Christmas Eve in 1994, in our secluded farmhouse in rural Manitoba, shattered everything I thought I knew about the unseen world. My name is Michael Carter, and my wife, Laura, and I had recently moved to the countryside seeking tranquility and a fresh start. Our farmhouse, a charming relic of a bygone era, stood amidst vast fields and dense forests, its whitewashed exterior and large windows promising serene solitude. With our first Christmas in our new home approaching, we were eager to create new traditions and memories with our friends and family. In November, we hosted a small gathering to introduce our neighbors to our new life. The guest list included our friends Tom and Sarah, their children Lily and Ben, and our new neighbors, the Thompsons, Mark, Susan, and their young daughter, Katie. The evening was filled with laughter, delicious food, and the warm glow of the fireplace, the air thick with the sense of pine and cinnamon. As Christmas Eve approached, the excitement in our home was palpable. Laura and I spent countless hours decorating the grand pine tree in the living room, stringing lights along the mantel, and hanging stockings by the fireplace. Emily, our 8-year-old daughter, was over the moon, her eyes sparkling with anticipation as she helped place each ornament with meticulous care. On Christmas Eve, we decided to host a larger party, inviting more friends and family to join us in celebrating the season together. The farmhouse was alive with activity, children darting around in festive attire, adults sharing stories over glasses of mulled wine, and the occasional crackle from the fireplace adding to the cozy atmosphere. The storm outside was fierce, the wind howling through the tall pines and snow piling higher against the windows. But inside, the house was a sanctuary of warmth and joy. Around 8 p.m., as we all settled around the dining table for dinner, a sudden, loud knock echoed through the house. We froze, the sound reverberating off the walls like a clap of thunder. Laura stood up, her face pale with surprise. "I'll get it," she said, her voice wavering slightly. She approached the front door cautiously, the storm outside making her movements tentative. When she opened the door, there was no one there, only the swirling snow and the howling wind. On the doorstep lay an old, yellowed card, its edges frayed from years of neglect. Laura picked it up, her hands trembling as she read the faded ink. "We will stay with you tonight." A chill ran through us as we exchanged uneasy glances. The room felt colder, the shadows deepening as if the house itself had taken on a life of its own. Just as we were about to dismiss it, the windows began to open on their own, the glass rattling against the frames without any apparent cause. "Someone is here," Tom muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah clutched her coat tighter, eyes darting nervously around the room. "We need to leave," she said, her voice trembling. But as we attempted to leave, we found the doors wouldn't budge, locked tight despite our frantic attempts to open them. The windows were no longer an option. They were too high, too dangerous in the storm to consider. Panic set in as we realized we were trapped, the weight of the house's dark energy pressing down on us. "We need to stay calm and figure this out," Laura urged, trying to steady her voice. But as minutes turned into hours, our efforts to escape proved futile. The house seemed alive, reacting to our fear and frustration. Shadows danced on the walls, shapes shifting and morphing in the corner of our eyes. The feeling of being watched intensified, an invisible presence lingering just beyond the edge of perception. Around midnight, the most terrifying event unfolded. One by one, members of our group reported seeing a ghostly figure standing at the top of the grand staircase. It was a woman in a flowing black dress, her eyes hollow and filled with sorrow. Her presence was both haunting and heartbreaking, a spectral reminder of the tragedy that had occurred decades ago. "I saw her," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "She was watching us." Panic surged through us as the ghostly woman began to move, descending the staircase with an ethereal grace. Her eyes never left ours, and a deep sense of melancholy emanated from her. "We're just trying to celebrate Christmas," I managed to say, my voice cracking under the pressure. The woman in black paused, her expression shifting from sorrow to something darker. "This house holds pain and loss," she intoned, her voice echoing unnaturally through the silent room. "You must remember us." Determined to understand, we decided to confront whatever spirit was haunting our home. Summoning every ounce of courage, I stepped forward, meeting her cold gaze. "Who are you? What happened here?" The woman's form shimmered, becoming more defined. "I am Eleanor Whitaker," she whispered, her voice filled with unresolved anguish. 20 years ago, on this very night, my family and I lost our lives in a tragic accident. Our spirits remain, bound to this house by our sorrow." Laura stepped beside me, her hand gripping mine tightly. "We're so sorry for your loss. How can we help you find peace?" Eleanor's eyes softened slightly, a flicker of hope mingling with her sorrow. Remember us, honor our memory, and help us find the closure we never received. With those final words, the oppressive atmosphere began to ease, the shadows receding as if responding to our newfound purpose. The lights flickered gently, and the room seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Eleanor's form began to fade, her presence lifting like mist in the morning sun. "Thank you," she whispered before disappearing entirely. As dawn broke, the first light of Christmas morning filtered through the windows, casting a warm glow over the snow-covered landscape. The storm outside had subsided, leaving behind a serene calm that enveloped our farmhouse. The doors and windows unlocked themselves, allowing us to finally leave the haunted confines of our home. In the days that followed, we shared our experience with the local authorities, who confirmed the tragic history of the Whitaker family. The house had been the scene of a devastating fire 20 years prior, claiming the lives of Eleanor, her husband, and their 2 children. Their spirits had been trapped, reliving their final moments each Christmas Eve in a desperate attempt to find peace. Determined to honor Eleanor's plea, we decided to hold a memorial service, inviting our friends and neighbors to join us in remembering the Whitaker family. We decorated the living room with candles and flowers, creating a serene atmosphere that contrasted sharply with the chaos of that fateful night. We shared stories of love, loss, and the enduring power of compassion, ensuring that the Whitaker legacy would not be forgotten. That Christmas Eve, as we gathered once more in the farmhouse, the air was filled with a sense of hope and reconciliation. The shadows had lifted, replaced by the warm glow of candlelight and the comforting presence of our loved ones. We recited prayers and played soft Christmas carols, our voices blending into a harmonious melody that seemed to bridge the gap between the living and the dead. As midnight approached, we held hands, the candles flickering softly in the calm night. The oppressive energy that had once filled the house was gone, replaced by a peaceful stillness that allowed us to fully embrace the joy of the season. It was then that we felt a gentle presence, a comforting warmth that enveloped us like a protective embrace. The spirit of Eleanor Whitaker appeared once more, her form ethereal and serene. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice now filled with gratitude and peace. "You have honored our memory. We can finally rest." With those final words, Eleanor's spirit faded into the light, the shadows retreating as if being gently pushed back by the dawn. The farmhouse stood silent, a beacon of love and remembrance amidst the snowy landscape. In the years that followed, our farmhouse remained a place of warmth and joy. The memory of that haunting Christmas Eve transformed into a story of redemption and the enduring power of compassion. Every Christmas, as I sit by the fireplace with Laura and Emily, I reflect on that night and the spirits we helped find peace. Grateful for the bond we shared in our struggle to survive and honor the memories of those lost. And so, the story of the Christmas party of the ghosts lives on, a haunting yet beautiful tale that intertwines with the festive spirit, reminding us to cherish our loved ones and honor the memories of those who have passed, ensuring their presence remains a beacon of love and remembrance in our hearts forever. Story number 3. Christmas without escape. I never believed in ghosts. Growing up in the bustling suburbs of Chicago, surrounded by the comforting hum of city life, I found solace in the tangible, the steady rhythm of daily routines, the warmth of family gatherings, and the predictable chaos of urban existence. So when my friends and I, eager to break away from our monotonous lives, decided to host a Christmas party at the old Whitaker house in rural Illinois, I dismissed the whispers of local lore as mere superstition. The Whitaker house had stood abandoned for decades, its once grand facade now marred by peeling paint and overgrown ivy. Stories circulated about its dark past, tales of a tragic Christmas Eve 20 years prior when the entire Whitaker family had been brutally murdered during a holiday celebration. The house had remained silent since, a relic of sorrow and mystery that none dared to explore. But us? We were a group of thrill-seekers, fueled by youthful bravado and the allure of the unknown. On December 20th, 2001, we loaded our gear into my old Jeep and set off towards the decrepit mansion. The drive was long, winding through snow-covered fields and dense forests, the landscape transformed by winter's grip. As dusk settled, the house loomed before us, its dark silhouette outlined against the fading light. Lanterns hung haphazardly around the porch, casting eerie shadows that danced with each gust of wind. "Here we are," Tom announced, stepping out first. His voice held a mix of excitement and nervousness that mirrored my own. We fanned out, unloading food, decorations, and portable speakers. The interior was as we'd imagined, dusty, with remnants of former opulence. Broken furniture lay scattered, and cobwebs draped from the ceiling like ghostly veils. Yet, we saw it as a blank canvas, perfect for our impromptu celebration. As night fell, we lit candles and strung fairy lights around the grand Christmas tree that stood defiantly in the corner. The fireplace, surprisingly intact, added a touch of warmth to the cold, desolate space. Music filled the room, blending with our laughter and the clinking of glasses. For a while, the house felt alive again, echoing with the sounds of friendship and festivity. About an hour into the party, the first signs of unease began to surface. A soft thudding noise echoed from upstairs, barely audible over the music. We paused, exchanging uneasy glances. "Probably just the wind," Sarah suggested, though her voice lacked conviction. But the noise persisted, growing slightly louder and more rhythmic. Curious and slightly unnerved, we decided to investigate. Tom grabbed a flashlight, leading the way up the creaky staircase. Each step groaned under our weight, the beam of light cutting through the darkness. As we reached the top, the thudding stopped abruptly. The hallway was silent, the air thick with anticipation. We hesitated, the old house feeling suddenly oppressive. Before we could turn back, a loud knock reverberated through the corridor, followed by the sound of footsteps pacing back and forth. "We need to get out of here," Mike urged, his bravado fading into genuine fear. But Laura, ever the peacekeeper, insisted, "Let's just see what's going on. Maybe someone got lost." Reluctantly, we continued down the hall, the atmosphere growing colder with each step. The knocking had ceased, replaced by an unsettling silence. At the end of the hallway stood a door we hadn't noticed before, its surface marred by scratches and dents. Tom pushed it open cautiously, revealing a small, empty room. The window was cracked, snow swirling outside, but nothing else seemed out of place. "Nothing here," he announced, disappointment etched on his face. As we turned to leave, the door slammed shut with a force that sent shivers down our spines. Panic set in as we rushed back down the stairs, only to find every exit in the house sealed shut. The front door wouldn't budge, windows locked tight despite our frantic attempts to open them. "What's happening?" Jake cried, fear evident in his eyes. "We're trapped," I realized, a sinking feeling settling in my gut. The room seemed to grow colder, the candle flames flickering wildly as if struggling against an unseen force. Objects began to move on their own, plates sliding off tables, decorations swaying without wind, and the fairy lights dimming and brightening unpredictably. The oppressive atmosphere pressed down on us, making it difficult to breathe. "We need to stay calm and figure this out," Laura urged, trying to steady her voice. But as minutes turned into hours, our efforts to escape proved futile. The house seemed alive, reacting to our fear and frustration. Shadows danced on the walls, shapes shifting and morphing in the corner of our eyes. The feeling of being watched intensified, an invisible presence lingering just beyond the edge of perception. Around midnight, the most terrifying event unfolded. One by one, members of our group reported seeing a ghostly figure standing at the top of the grand staircase. It was a woman in a flowing black dress, her eyes hollow and filled with sorrow, Her presence was both haunting and heartbreaking, a spectral reminder of the tragedy that had occurred decades ago. "I saw her," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. She was watching us. Panic surged through us as the ghostly woman began to move, descending the staircase with an ethereal grace. Her eyes never left ours, and a deep sense of melancholy emanated from her. "Why are you here?" I called out, my voice shaking. The figure paused at the foot of the stairs, her expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be here," she intoned, her voice echoing through the silent house. "This place holds too much pain." Before we could respond, the room plunged into darkness as the candles extinguished themselves, leaving us in pitch blackness. The only sound was the relentless storm outside, the wind howling like a chorus of lost souls. In the darkness, the feeling of being trapped became unbearable, the weight of the house's sorrow pressing down on us. "Let us out," Mike shouted, banging on the walls in desperation. But the house remained silent, the doors and windows unyielding. As the night dragged on, exhaustion and fear took their toll. The once festive atmosphere now a nightmarish landscape of shadows and whispers. When dawn finally broke, the first rays of sunlight pierced through the storm clouds, casting a pale light into the house. We stood in the living room, the oppressive darkness lifted, the house now eerily still. The doors and windows unlocked themselves, allowing us to escape the haunted confines. Breathing in the crisp morning air, we realized the gravity of what had transpired. The Whitaker house had indeed been the site of a tragic Christmas Eve 20 years earlier. A family lost to a night of terror that left their spirits bound to the house. Their restless presence had been a desperate attempt to relive their final moments, to find peace that eluded them in death. In the aftermath, we shared our story with the local authorities, who confirmed the dark history of the Whitaker family. The house was once again abandoned, its legacy of sorrow a cautionary tale whispered among the townsfolk. We left the farmhouse behind, the memory of that harrowing night etched into our minds forever. Years have passed since that Christmas Eve, but the lessons remain. The experience taught us the importance of empathy and respect for the past, understanding that some tragedies leave behind echoes that can never truly be silenced. Every holiday, I reflect on that night and the spirits we inadvertently disturbed, grateful for the bond we shared in our struggle to survive and honor the memories of those lost. And so, the story of the Christmas party without escape lives on, a haunting reminder of the thin veil between the living and the dead, and the enduring power of compassion to bridge that divide. It serves as a testament to the fact that even in our most joyous celebrations, the shadows of the past can linger, waiting to be acknowledged and remembered with love and understanding.